Hello Ecology Apprentices, today we're going to make a review about terrestrial biomes, and to make it more fun, we will compare them with some movies. So let's go to it. The first thing you need to remember is that life depends on these four main factors, and they will also determine the abundance of the species. It will be the energy, the amount of nutrients, the availability of water, and suitable temperatures. In the case of aquatic biomes, light, temperature, and nutrients will change in each of the layers or in each depth. But in the case of terrestrial biomes, nutrients, energy, and temperatures will be quite stable. In this case, the limiting factor, or the thing that will change, will be the availability of water. Now, these characteristics are going to occur on Earth in a specific pattern that we call biomes. Biomes are defined as very large communities dominated by a particular type of vegetation. And because of this, they're going to have the same amount of energy, nutrients, water availability, and temperatures. This map shows 10 different biomes that are located in the world following the physical conditions provided by Earth. If you remember the previous topic, Earth's curvature and tilt, oceanic and air patterns, geographic composition of the place will determine the physical conditions and also the biomes located in it. If you see this map, you're going to start at the equator, and the biomes are going to be located up and down the equator like in a mirror shape, following these physical patterns produced by Earth. For making things more easier to you, we will summarize the biomes in 8 different examples that we are going to compare with movies. Have you seen the movie Tarzan from Disney? If you remember this movie, then you remember the main characteristic of our main biome, which is the tropical rainforest. Tropical rainforests are located below the equator and between the tropics. They're going to have very high temperatures with high precipitation, which produce very humid places. They are also considered the most productive biomes of all because of the amount of energy that they can store. And this energy will be stored by the process of photosynthesis. Now, having light such an important role, this light will act as a limiting factor, producing different vertical stratification layers that we can see in this image. The emergent layer at the top, the canopy next, understory, and undergrowth layer. Now, the layer that receives most of the light will be the canopy. Now, the tree tops are going to prevent the light from going into the lower layers. So, these force to have wider leaves and greener leaves to catch as little energy as they can reach. Now, tropical rainforest is generally affected by two activities: lumbering, that transforms the forest into barren places for wood, and also into farmlands, or any agricultural practice that leaves the soil practically infertile. When this biome turns into this type of land, they're going to absorb all of the nutrients, and they're going to remain like that for hundreds of years. I know you're familiar with the Lion King movie, and it represents our next terrestrial biome. But you need to think about the first and the last part of the movie, not the middle section, because this middle section will also be an example of the tropical rainforest. This biome, in the beginning and the end of the Lion King movie, will be the savanna. Savannas are located for hot weather with a very short rainy season. Because of this, the dominant vegetation will be adapted to strong droughts, and they are going to grow very fast, taking as much water as they can in the rainy season. And they're going to be adapted to store that water. It is a place where some of the largest terrestrial mammals will be found, like rhinos, elephants, zebras, and obviously lions. Savanna will be affected by the extensive cattle that exhaust the grasses, obviously pouching activities for important parts of a species like horns or tusk, along with the trade of a species in the black market. If you have seen movies like Home Ranch, Rango, Aladdin, or The Prince of Egypt, then you are very familiar with this place, the desert. This biome is characterized by the lack of precipitation rather than its high temperature, because you need to remember that they may be freezing at the night. Every living creature in the desert is adapted to extreme droughts. Plants must have thorns instead of leaves to avoid dehydration. Animals are going to have different active patterns to avoid extreme temperatures, being active only during certain period of time, the colder seasons, or also hiding in underground burrows. How is desert affected by human activities? Generally, it will be affected by motocross, that will kill the beneficial bacteria that live underground and that are crucial for maintaining the ecosystem environment. The excessive use of bushes and plants for some human communities that live there could also be another problem. We have an important concept to understand. When any other biome turns into something similar as a desert, we call it desertification process. Generally, it is produced by deforestation, climate change, the excessive use of vegetation, and obviously drastic changes in the physical conditions of these natural places. Do you remember the movie Spirit? Wild horses running through open plains without almost any tree? Well, that will be our next biome, the grasslands. Grasslands are also called prairies. They are usually located at the center of the continents, and they have strong shifting temperatures during the summer and the winter. This is usually the reason why there are no trees around, because of the lack of water. And the keystone species there will be various species of grass. These are some of the organisms that we can find in the prairies, all depending on these grass species. How is grassland affected by human activities? Generally, by fire, overgrazing of cattle, which usually compacts the soil and changes its pH because of the accumulation of feces and urine. And finally, hunting. One of the most common examples is the excessive hunting of the bison that was performed in North America, bringing this species almost to the brink of extinction. In our next example, who doesn't remember Brother Bear? Well, if you remember most of these iconic scenes, then you are familiar with our next biome, coniferous forest. Coniferous forests are also known as northern coniferous forest or taiga, which is the largest terrestrial biome located almost at the beginning of the poles. They're going to have strong winters in which most precipitation falls as snow, and the dominant vegetation will be the conifers, which are mostly known as pine trees. Now, pine trees are adapted to the snow because of the needles. That's how we call those leaves, needles. And they adapted to survive cold temperatures, avoiding being freeze. These trees are also known as evergreen because they will never lose their leaves in spite of the changes in the temperature. These are some images that represent the main phases of the coniferous forest with snow and no snow. How is coniferous forest affected by humans? Generally, they're going to be affected by lumbering and destruction of natural oil and gas, and as well as hunting. Now, have you ever seen a lovely landscape in which the trees turns into yellowish, orange, or brownish color during the autumn and they lose all the leaves in the winter, like in the movie Spiderwick Chronicles? Then you're familiar with another biome known as deciduous forest. Also known as temperate deciduous forest, could be located near some coastlines. They are related to the ocean in some cases. And they have strong shifting weather patterns characterized with leaves that change their color according to the season. During the autumn, when the amount of water reduces, the amount of chlorophyll inside leaves will reduce as well, causing the change in the leaf from green to yellow, orange, and then brown. And during winter, the leaves are going to be lost at all because trees are going to be adapted to preserve as much water as they can, losing the leaves. These are some pretty images about the deciduous forest. Now, deciduous forest is affected by humans, generally by lumbering, hunting, farming, but also housing. I'm sure you're familiar with the next example. The latest Disney hit called Frozen 2 takes place in many biomes. One of these could be the deciduous forest because of the falling leaves and the strong change in color according to the season. But the one we're going to focus now in It's represented in plain regions with almost any trees at all and very small plants that are the favorite food for reindeers. This plain biome is known as the tundra. Tundra is the furthest north biome in the world, almost touching the polar cascades. This biome is considered a frozen desert because of the almost non-existent precipitation and very low temperatures. Tundra has a layer of constantly frozen soil known as the permafrost, which avoids the little water that falls into the ground to seep in and accumulate nutrients. Therefore, the only plants that are capable of growing there are small lichens, mosses, and dwarf herbs. Because of these conditions, tundra has a very short growing season. This is why it's considered one of the most fragile biomes of all. These are some pictures of the tundra biome. Now, the human's activities that can affect tundra generally are the off-road vehicles that affect the small lichen, oil drilling companies, and obviously the climate change. In this case, not every biome turning into green will be a good sign. So, I hope you have enjoyed this little summary about terrestrial biomes, and remember, always use your scientific skills and to love biology. See you later, guys. Bye.